Good morning, everyone.
G'day.
G'day.
Hang on, you aren't microphoned up. Hang on.
G'day.
This is welcome to Red Gum. If this is your first time, this is my grandson Jesse. And Jesse, where do you live?
I live in New South Wales, Sydney.
Yeah. And you're down with your granddad for just say 10 days, and you and I are batching.
Yes.
I'm a good cook, aren't I?
No.
Wrong answer. You're not getting fed tonight, right? So welcome. It's great to have you with us. And just thinking about birthdays. Have anyone had a birthday lately?
No.
Do you know anyone that's had a birthday?
No.
You do too.
Who?
John Gramis has had a
Oh,
birthday.
yes.
Yes.
Yesterday or today.
And
Daniel was telling me.
someone's got a birthday tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep. Milan.
Okay, so fantastic to have you with us. Right now, our daughter Bronnie is in the process of shifting down to Bairnsdale. And so Coral's in Sydney, and I'm here, and you're here, Jesse. What's the best thing about Bairnsdale that you like?
Going hunting.
Great answer. Yep. Yeah, that's a great answer. And have you been behaving yourself since you've been here?
Sort of.
Okay, so what have you liked doing best since you've been here with your granddad?
Hunting.
You meant to say also mowing the lawns.
Yeah. Mowing the lawns.
On the ride-on mower.
Yeah, on the ride-on mower.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Jesse. You can disappear now. That was your moment of fame. Yep.
Well
and
done.
that's just so that his mum knows that we're looking after him and he's alive and being
he's
fed.
Being fed and watered.
Being fed,
Yeah.
yes. What I want to really celebrate this morning is that we have been delivering to 60 families in the fire recovery area Christmas gifts on behalf of Red Gum. And there's a team been driving up to people's homes and giving them something from Red Gum just to encourage them. And when we talked about the idea of doing this, we looked at what was left in the kitty to help with the fire recovery, and there actually wasn't much left. And so I had a talk with Ali, and we decided, well, we began with nothing, so let's just do it. It was a good idea, so let's just go for it. And I was driving up the bush, and I get a phone call from a pastor in Sydney, church of maybe 40, 50 people, and he says, Lex, we've raised $1,000. Can you use that right now? And suddenly there, bang,
Just like that.
with some of the money.
Yep.
And then another guy,
Very cool.
a business guy, he said personally, I'd like to kick in $1,000 as well. And so suddenly we'd begun with this process. One day we made a decision, we're going to do it. And the next day the money came in. So it's just been amazing. I love the generosity of God's people. It's really been quite incredible. Yep.
Step of faith. It's awesome.
Next Sunday, we're doing an interview with my sister, Rosalie, who's the new Uniting Church minister in Bairnsdale, and my brother, Jeff. And I want to really ask them some tough questions about emotional health, about emotional maturity, about relationships. And I want you to message me questions. I want you to just personally message me or email me or text or ring me. I want to hear things that you want to hear. I want you to tell me what questions you want me to ask them, and subjects or things that you're concerned about, things that you struggle with. Just let me know what you're thinking so that we can really answer the questions that you're asking. So that's next week. And the week after, Steve, what's happening then?
You tell me.
No, you're meant to know. We're
Well,
going.
is it something to do with the old station cafe?
It is. See, you're a cunning man, aren't you? Eh? A cunning man. So what's happening at the old station cafe?
Don't know.
You do
No.
too.
No, I
He
do.
does.
I do know. We're getting together for a feed.
We are.
For
Big
Christmas.
Christmas lunch.
Yep.
$10 a head. Red
Yep.
Gum's covering the extra, the money on
Big
top of that.
spread.
It is. It's a roast. It's eat all you can, and we're going to be gathering at 11:30.
Ken,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Wow, that'll put Simon to the test.
He doesn't know this yet, right? But it's eat all you can. It's we're going to start at 11:30, and we're going to be watching a pre-recorded Red Gum live that will have gone out at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then at 12:30, we're having lunch together and hanging out. And it's going to be fantastic.
Sounds
So
great.
we want to see everyone there in 2 weeks' time, Old Station Cafe. Yep.
See you there.
So we have a kids' little segment. And for those kids that are watching, this is your moment.
morning, Red Gum Kids. My name's Nathaniel, and today we're going to read about Jacob. Jacob worked in the house of his uncle Laban, and he fell in love with Laban's younger daughter Rachel. His uncle agreed that if he worked for him for 7 years, then at the end of that time he could marry Rachel. After 7 years, the marriage took place. But when Jacob lifted the veil from his wife's face, it was not Rachel standing before him, but her elder sister Leah. He had been tricked. Laban told him that it was the custom that the oldest daughter marry first, but he said that if Jacob would promise to work for him for another 7 years, then he could marry his beloved Rachel. Jacob loved her so much that he agreed. Rachel was always his favourite wife, but God took pity on Leah and blessed her with 4 strong sons, while it was many years before Rachel had a son. Although Jacob felt it was time to return home, his uncle wanted him to stay. He agreed to give him as his wages all the marked or speckled animals in the herds, but then tried to cheat Jacob by rounding up any marked animals and sending them away with his sons, so that all the new animals would be born without marks. But God told Jacob to place some fresh peeled branches in the animals' water troughs when the strong, healthy animals came to drink, and all the animals that were born to them were marked or speckled. In this way, all the strong animals went to Jacob, and all the weak animals went to Laban. Jacob knew that his uncle would continue to cheat him, so one day he set off for home, along with all his family, servants, and animals. Laban chased after him, but in the end the 2 men agreed to let each other be. That's all today, kids. Have a good day.
Hey, welcome back. I heard it was your wedding anniversary this week, Lex.
Yeah, on Wednesday.
Wow.
I love hanging out with my gorgeous bride
Mm.
on our wedding anniversary. And I think the thrill of Wednesday was I got to spend 3 minutes with her.
That's special.
It was incredible. Like, I was driving down from Sydney back here. I got Jessie with me, right? And Jessie, did we did when we got to Nimitabel?
They hugged each other and kept going.
Yeah, we hugged each other and I gave her a big kiss on the side of the road, didn't I? I mean, on the lips, actually. Yeah, yeah. And so we swapped vehicles. So I got to see my bride. Now, 42 years ago, I got to spend the rest of the day with her. And 42 years ago, you didn't exist. Yeah. So I thought it was pretty special that even though I couldn't be with Coral, you and I got to hang out together driving from Sydney here. Wasn't that fun?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, back to you, Steve.
Sounds good. Thank you. 42 years. That's a very good effort. Oh, these pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed but not forsaken. I've been set free. I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. You take out failures, you take out weakness, Set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. I can see you now. I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. Amazing grace, the sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Join me as we sing your great name. Lost or saved, find their way at the sound of your great name. Open down, feel no shame at the sound of your great name. Every fear has no place at the sound of your great name. The enemy, he has to leave at the sound of your great name. Jesus, worthy is the Lamb that was slain for us. Son of God and man, you are high and lifted up. And all the world will praise your great name. All the weak find their strength at the sound souls receive grace at the sound of your great name. The fatherless, they find their rest at the sound of your great name. The sick are healed and the dead are raised at the sound of your great name, Jesus. Worthy is the Lamb that was slain for us. Son of God and man, you are high and lifted up. And all the world will praise your great name. Redeemer, my healer, Lord Almighty, my Savior, defender, you are my King. Redeemer, my healer, Lord Almighty, my Savior, defender, you are my King. Jesus, worthy is the Lamb that was slain for us. Son of God and man, you are lifted up. And all the world will praise your great name. Your great name. Your great name. Over to you, Lex.
Do you know, every week I always thank those that are leading worship,
Mhm.
right? And I just want to especially thank you this morning because I know you do this to serve others.
Mm.
And I just thank you for taking the raw gift that God's given you
Yep.
and then using that to be an encouragement to others. And I worship leaders do that, and I want to just thank you this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Really great having you. Like, it really is amazing. I'm in the privileged position of hearing stories directly to me of what you being involved in this, what that's meaning into people's lives, the changes that's coming, how people are being set free and healed. And it's just so encouraging to hear your stories. And so once again, I just encourage you this week, message me, tell me what's happening in your life, and ask us questions that I can put to those that I'm interviewing this coming Sunday. I can remember sitting down with a married couple. Their marriage was in a mess. They had been no sexual intimacy for a long, long time. It was like they were living separate lives, and they didn't understand each other. And they got to a place where they began to be fearful that if this marriage couldn't work, what would happen to their children? What would be the impact on them? And so they asked me to come and sit down with them, and we had this chat this day. But see, the problem was they were both very emotionally damaged from experiences that happened in the past, in their childhood, growing up, different expectations they carried into this marriage. And I guess the issue is, how can you build any relationship without emotional health? Because these were really great people. If you met them, you would like them. They're wonderful people, but they were just struggling in this most precious, vulnerable part of their life. Without emotionally healthy responses, we end up in a cycle where we feel hurt. We get let down by people. Things may work for a little while, whether that be at work or in a friendship or a family, but then eventually someone lets us down and we realize we just can't trust them. And so we get to a place where the cycle just keeps going. And so how do we change that? Because it feels like people just don't understand you, or worse, they misunderstand you. For a long time in my life, when I retold stories of things that were happening in my life, it always seemed to come down to the fact that all my problems were the cause of someone else. Until I came to a very painful truth that perhaps people are actually reflecting back to me my own struggles with emotional health and my immaturity. If you'd known me when I was 18, I'm telling you, I was a very immature idiot. That's it. That's who I was, right? But then I started to grow up a little bit, and I got married when I was 21, and I can remember in this first year of marriage, there was a moment, Coral and I lying in bed, and I had this brilliant idea. I thought I could reassure Coral, just give her some confidence about the future. So I rolled over and I said to her, you know, Coral, if you died, I'd be okay because I'd marry Kerry. Like Kerry was my ex-girlfriend. She wasn't. I don't think Kerry would have been really excited about that idea, but I had this idea now. That didn't go well. It wasn't the moment of my highest emotional intelligence, I'm telling you. And that's just an immaturity. It's a not understanding the other person and causing grief in that moment. And Paul, when he's writing to the Romans, he wrote this in chapter 12 of Romans, and he says, if it's possible, as far as it depends upon you, live at peace with everyone. Now, you and I both know that that's not possible, but Paul's saying, as far as it depends upon us. Now, we aren't responsible for other people's reactions, but there's this huge place that we play our response to people and what they do and how we interact with them. It has a dramatic effect. It's called the law of second response. It's a moment in a relationship where something's happened, and now how you respond, whatever you do in the next moments or two, or how you respond, that will determine the whole future direction of this relationship. It's the law of second response, and Jesus talked about it when he said, in that Roman times, the soldiers could force you to carry their heavy stuff, their backpacks and all their gear, their daily stuff, a certain distance. And Jesus said, if someone forces you to do 1 lap, 2 Ks, do 4. Surprise them. If someone wants to loan something from you, give it to them and don't expect it to come back. If they're wanting to grab your cap, give them your shoes as well. And he said something that's really probably a little bit out there. He said, if someone smacks you in the face, let them have a go at the other side. Now, Jesus was exaggerating to make the point. He's not expecting you to stay or anyone to stay in an abusive relationship. But Jesus and Paul are talking to us about our responses and how they impact on the relationships around us. When I was in year 9 at school, we had this class and it was called Religious Education. And a local minister from the town would come and teach the class about Jesus stuff, right? Well, at the start of this class, I found this nail. Now, there was a kid in my class in year 9, I just did not like him. I can't tell you why, I can't remember why I didn't like him. And I grabbed this nail and I bent it and I got a rubber band and I pulled it right back and I went, and I flicked it across and it went, smacked him in the face. Well, he didn't like that. He got up and he's got arms swinging everywhere and he came over and trying to thump me. Well, I had to thump him back. I got expelled from religious education for a year in year 9 because my reaction to someone I didn't like. It was so over the top. He'd never done anything like that to me. But see, that's what the punishment mindset does. We do things far worse to someone else than they've ever enables us to respond differently. But see, I told you, I was an immature idiot. And I was worse in year 9 than when I was 18. But the starting point for a is a place you may not be expecting. it's a place that if we can get to, it does change everything. And this is the place to get to. It's accepting our limitations. Now, our culture doesn't teach us that. Our worldview is far different from that. In fact, our society tells us that if you can achieve anything you set your mind to, that you don't have to let anyone limit you, that there are no limits. But see, that's not true. In every 24 hours, you need some sleep. I need sleep to function. I've tried it without it. It doesn't go well. You're born, you've been aging. It's true. Like the all the you know, what do you call it? When they stitch you all together and put plastic stuff in you, the plastic surgery, right? When they do all that doesn't extend a moment of your life. We still die. We're aging. You no matter how smart you are, there's not you can't a full grasp of all knowledge. It's not possible. I don't know how skilled you are, but even your gifts and your talents, they're just never enough. There are limits. And like, for example, if you can even go around your house today and find one dead blowfly, any fly, even a little one, I challenge you to bring it back to life. Like, you can give it mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, you can do a little heart, don't do it too hard, it squashes them. But try and find a dead fly and bring it back. There's limits to what we can do. Accepting our limitations, it can be painful. And we all have a sort of a coping mechanism to pain. And one of the things that we do is we can go into denial. And denial is like a shock absorber. It takes the reality out for a little bit, but it's helpful. But if we stay there, it's not a good place to live, to stay in denial. And Jesus spoke and he told us that his truth could actually set us free. Now, you may have seen in kids colouring in books where there's dots on a page. And the idea is the kid gets a pencil and they join all the dots together and it forms a picture. They connect all the dots. We do that with life. We connect the dots. We form a picture of us, an identity of who we think we are. But before we do that, we actually collect dots. It's a story we tell ourselves about ourselves. We grab dots from our childhood, from experiences we've had, from things that people have spoken over us, to experiences that we've gone through. But if we form our identity out of dots that are emotionally damaged areas of our life, if we form an identity out where there's dots missing, where there's dots that are really not true, we come up with an image that is very far from who God made us to be, who Jesus says we are, right? I know what but see, we collect dots, we connect dots, but Jesus came to correct dots, to rearrange them, to put in the missing pieces so we could see who we really are in him, to heal the broken dots, the emotional baggage that we carry, the expectations, the things we've told ourselves, what others have spoken over us. He puts all the dots in the right place. And that's what he came to do in our lives. And that all begins when we start to accept our limitations. But not just accepting them, not just acknowledging that we've got limits, but going beyond that. See, you can get to a place in life where you financially are done. Everything's gone. You can get to a place where your relationships are all shot to pieces, where physically your body is giving out on you. And that's the place where Job got to in the book of Job in the Old Testament. But it still didn't change anything in the story of Job. He's the good guy. He's like the Bill Gates of his society back then. his whole world collapses. Physically, he gets to a place where he's got sort of these sores on his body, and there's maggots getting in. Yucky. It's a very gross, damaged, everything's done. And yet, the whole of the book of Job, nothing changes until the last chapter. Now, I have a problem with the book of Job, and it's maybe not what you're thinking. See, growing up in our family, my dad wanted us to say things nicely and not roughly. And I don't know where this came from, but when we wanted to go to the toilet as a child, if it was number one, Dad taught us to say that we wanted to do a wet. We couldn't even say it was a wee. We had to say it was a wet. Now, I don't know where that came from. It might have been North Queensland language. I don't know. My aunties can probably tell me. And then if we wanted to do a number two, it wasn't a poo, it was a job. How do you spell job? J-O-B. How do you spell Job? Same, right? As a kid growing up, I'm seeing a book in the Bible that's got this word that I'm struggling with. And so I've always struggled with the book of Job. I've struggled with this thing, right? But in the book of Job, at the 42nd chapter, at the last chapter of the book, and he's healed. But it begins in chapter 38 when God starts to challenge Job and he actually tackles the issue going on in Job, which wasn't the fact that he got to the limit physically or anything like that. It was where Job's heart was still at, what he still thought about himself. He hadn't got to a place yet where he had limited even his own understanding of God. So God comes to him and he says, okay, Job, smarty pants, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? This is Job chapter 38. I'm just picking out a few verses of it. He says, who determined its dimensions? Tell me if you know so much. Where is the earth stretched to? Where's the surveying lines? What supports its foundations? And who laid the cornerstone? I love the attitude of God getting stuck into Job. He says, who kept the sea inside its boundaries? Can you direct the movement of the stars? Come on, Job. Come on, tell me. Do you know the laws of the universe? Can you use them to regulate the earth? 4 chapters, God just goes on and on until Job gets it. And there's this moment at the start of chapter 42, and Job says, I was talking about things that I knew nothing about. That's the moment he understood his limitations. And that was a changing point, because then he says, my eyes have heard of you, my ears have heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. By the time Job got to chapter 32, he's carrying a lot of emotional pain. You don't go through the loss that Job went without feeling very traumatized. Like just the loss of his possessions. You talk to someone that had the fires go through and they lost everything. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt and grief in that, the loss. He lost his children. His health was gone. And so there comes a point when he understands his limitations and he sees God differently, and God's able to heal him and restore him. And the last few words of the book of Job, it says that he got to see his great grandkids. And the last words in the book says, talking about Job, it says, so he died old and full of years. It's like they couldn't jam another year into him. He's just as full as you can get him, and all his years are done, right? But God restored him and brought health to his whole world. Accepting our limitations began the healing process for Job, and it does for us. It was a change of identity for Job. It brought emotional healing. See, knowledge of God and knowledge of self are interconnected. You can't separate them. Job had collected the dots. He connected the dots, but God came and corrected them for him and showed him who he really was and who he could be in God. Yesterday, Jesse and I, my grandson, were travelling to Melbourne, and I was listening to a podcast of Kerry Newhoff, and he was interviewing a lady called Lisa Turkhurst, that's it. And she's just written a book, and it's called Forgiving When You Can't Forget. And she introduced this concept in this interview of collecting the dots from the past, of connecting them and forming a picture of who we are, and how God came to correct the dots, to show us how he sees us, to bring his truth, to shine that on our life. Now, as Lisa was telling her story, part of her story and why she wrote this book is the fact that her husband has had this affair, a long-term affair, and it destroyed her world, her Christian husband and who she trusted, and it destroyed her world, and it destroyed their marriage. And this book is the journey, the painful journey of forgiveness and restoration. It's not in the book, but she shared this in the interview, this story of as she grew up, all the damage that she had experienced as a child had led her life. And this shame story, which she interpreted the dots through, the shame story was that she had this fear that she didn't want to be an inconvenience to people. She didn't want to be a nuisance or people would reject her. And her husband, as he grew up, he had developed this shame story that he was not good enough. He just felt, I'm not good enough. And so he interpreted all the dots of his life. And he came up with a picture in his identity, I'm not good enough. And then they got married. And they love each other. This husband and wife, they've raised kids. But throughout this first stage of their marriage, whenever he would try to express love to her by doing something for her, he'd offer to do something, and she'd say, no, I can do it myself. But what he heard was, no, you're not good enough to do it. And so the broken dots that we form pictures from, they can be devastating to relationships. It's why Jesus came to correct them, to rearrange them, to bring healing into these areas. There was a day when the laser gaze of Jesus looked at a big, tough fisherman, and he said, Simon, son of John, I know your story. I know who you are. But that's not who you're meant to be. That's not the picture of really who you are, because you just think you're a reed that just blows in the wind. But I'm going to call you Peter. You're going to be a rock. You're going to be solid. You're going to be stable. And the laser gaze of Jesus looked into a man and said, you are, but you shall be. And he changed his identity. But do you know what? It didn't happen in that first week. 3.5 years of hanging out with Jesus, emotionally up and down all over the place. The night Jesus was arrested, he grabs a sword and he whacks off an ear off one of the guards, and that night he denies Jesus, even denies he knows him, and he runs off into the dark, and it says that he wept bitterly. But Jesus told Peter before all that happened that he had been praying for him. He said that there's an enemy, Satan. He said that he wants to sift you like wheat. Now, that word sift is used only once in the whole of the New Testament, and Jesus used it deliberately. And it simply means to shake, and it's about inward agitation. What a brilliant picture of a description of our emotions out of control. It's a shaking, it's a inward agitation going on inside us. And Peter got to the end of his limits that night when Jesus was arrested. But it didn't change him. What changed him was an event called the resurrection. When he got a revelation of who Jesus really was, he got a revelation of who he was. And it was the grace of Jesus, not the punishment, that restored him when he failed. And out of that, Peter got a new identity, and he became one of the heroes of the new church, the early church, the strong leaders. And do you know what? That's meant to be our story. It's meant to be your story of a revelation of Jesus and a revelation of who you are. And in that, healing will come. So over the next few weeks, we're going to keep unraveling this. It's not all going to happen. You're not going to get all the answers you want in 1 week. But a starting place is to understand we all have limitations. But if we can get to the end of our limitations and see that God has answers that we don't, that's when true healing starts to take place. So thank you for being with us this morning. I'm going to hand back to Steve. And next week we've got an interview with my sister Rosalie and Jeff, and we're going to keep building upon this. So thank you.
Thank you, Lex. Laser gazer Jesus. That stuck. Well, hopefully there's some words or lines or something there for you.
Yeah, it's
Everyone
interesting, Steve. You and I were talking this week about that. I know that people don't remember a sermon, but they can remember one line, right? And a number of weeks ago, I made a comment that it's our secrets that make us sick, and just that one line had an impact on someone's life. And when I'm speaking, I have not got any clue where this will make a difference for you. But see, God's Spirit takes all this and He narrowcasts it into your life, and it can just be one thought, and bang, that's helpful.
Absolutely. Alrighty, we're going to sing about who we are as God's kids. Who am I that the high school would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Who the Son set free. Oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, He has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
You had no clue what I was talking about, did you, when you chose that song?
No.
I am who I say that I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
That's how God works.
It is. Lovely to have you with us this morning. And Jessie, you want to say goodbye, didn't you?
Yeah, goodbye.
That's it.
Yep.
Can't you say anything else from Red Gum?
Hope you have a good day, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome.
Yes, that's great.
Well done.
We will hope you have a good day, and we will see you next week. Thank you. See ya.
See ya.
Bye. Well,